morning, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace Marie. I am your astrologer. Happy Monday. It's been oh, there we go. Getting some ads in here. Sorry, guys. Welcome back. It's nice to see all of you guys. Those of you guys who are waiting in the chat, thank you. I appreciate you guys waiting. We have so much stuff to cover today. I'm not going to spend too much time kind of socializing and shooting it. I really want to get right into it because this week is quite busy. I don't know if you guys felt the energy, kind of the vibe was kind of funky like the last 24 hours or so, but we've been experiencing the Sun and Mercury conjunct in Leo in opposition to Saturn. So usually like this is this very kind of happy, boastful, full of life, very theatrical, kind of dramatic energy. Really being able to connect and share something that's very important about our personal beliefs, our thoughts, connecting the heart and the mind. And it's gotten kind of tethered by Saturn. Really started yesterday, still feeling it kind of today. I would say probably the theme of the week, and we'll go through it day by day, is like keeping up the momentum, keeping the optimism, remaining positive, not allowing ourselves to fall into like negative thought patterning, especially in spite of whatever's been going on right now, is actually happening and situations are taking place that cause friction to help us level up. I'm trying to remind myself that too. The last like 2 days for me has been like, ugh, but I also have a lot of Scorpio placements, so I don't fare too well when we have squares from other fixed signs, but I do see things improving. We've also got a new moon that's going to be happening later in the week in Leo, which I feel like is like super bright and sassy, and also yet another kind of message from the cosmos that change is a coming. So lots of things are happening this week. I do want to be able to make sure I also give a little bit of a reading and an insight for each of the 12 signs, kind of talk to you about where to put the most intention, where there's the most action, where there's the most change, depending on your house placement. So stay tuned to the end. I'm going to talk to you about the Sabian symbol, my interpretation on that, and also we'll talk a little bit about how the new moon in Leo is going to affect you. But if you guys have seen my other weekly videos, I've been talking about this build up to the beginning of August, and that the beginning of August was kind of going to be this crash, boom, bang energy, very similar to what happened in the very beginning of July of 2021, last month. Because we have such complex squares going on in the skies, it takes a little bit more time for me to kind of break it down. So some of you guys are like, okay, we get it. And other people are like, wait, I don't understand. If you were feeling the pressure, you were experiencing what I'm talking about. So let's kind of go through it day by day. Let me get my notes here and get everything ready. Okay, cool. So yeah, yesterday, even into today, you know, feeling that Sun opposition to Saturn. Actually, the Sun opposition was exact today on the 2nd. And we kind of see Saturn as like, you know, the cop, the authority figure, the parent, the adult, the boss, somebody who says, no, not yet, or do it the right way, or I'm going to limit this, or I'm not going to assist you. You have to figure it out yourself. With Saturn in Aquarius, it can be challenges with friendships, limitations with socializing, the inability to really kind of feel like you belong as a part of the group. So that Sun and even Mercury in Leo kind of gets slapped back a little bit and like told to, you know, go figure it out on your own, or sit in the corner, or, you know, this isn't something that you can participate in. Now on the micro, how it's affecting us on a personal level is whether or not we feel like we're able to participate with friends, whether or not we feel included in situations, whether or not we are being allowed into certain internet groups. And on the macro, it's more what's going on with social limitations. And I want you guys to pay attention to this, especially the next week, because I think there's going to be some major headlines and some things that are coming out about how we are now handling our social limitations, at least in the States, although I think it will be globally because Jupiter is now back in Aquarius. We've got Jupiter and Saturn in the same sign. Saturn's in a Saturn sign. Jupiter's kind of partying, although Jupiter will change degrees this week and drop down to 28 degrees. Right now it's at 29. So what we'll see is kind of like this global explosion with like how we are handling travel as a result of this new Delta variant that's kind of going around. And I think the next week is going to be very interesting, especially that new moon, because it kind of does indicate that there is like this push and pull energy between what the collective wants and what certain governing powers are going to say we can or cannot do. So I've talked about this a little bit. Let's see if it plays out. Definitely there's like a lot of shit hitting the fan at the end of the week, and I'll talk about that and kind of let you guys know why. I'm not like one of those like rainbows and butterflies astrologers. Like I'm gonna tell you guys what you need, and I'm also gonna tell you how to move through it, right? That's why I call it astro weather. It's like being able to know the environment that you're walking through for the week ahead, and knowing when you need to like bring your umbrella, right? Or when you should just stay home altogether. But yeah, a lot of just, you know, the heart's desire, right? Because that's Leo, the heart, what you want, what you need, what you're passionate about. And Saturn in Aquarius is extra frosty, very cold, and almost like getting iced out by somebody or by something. So if you have been experiencing this the last 2 days, it's part of the course. I would ask you to do the same thing that I'm trying to do. Like it's been really challenging for me because like I understand why it's happening. I even know when it's coming, but then when it happens, I get kind of like miffed and I'm just kind of like, what the fuck? Like, why is this happening? And that's definitely been my attitude for the last 48 hours. But then this morning I woke up and I was just like, if I maintain that perspective and I'm not really listening to my response, if I'm just reacting, it's going to perpetuate the situation, right, across the board. So I kind of made the decision this morning that was just like, well, I have to be the one to change it. And I think it's me adjusting to change. So if I'm having this response, I'm imagining a lot of other people are, I would encourage you to not really look at reacting, looking at what are your emotions telling you, right? Especially because as we're coming into this new moon that's going to be in Leo before it goes crash, boom, bang with Uranus, it will, the moon will move into Cancer, it will oppose Pluto, and there are some like deep transformational feelings and shifts that will happen right before the new moon. So there's a method to the madness. Everything that's happening this week is meant to be showing us and kind of orchestrated chaos in order to guide us in the direction of where we need to be innovative, where we need to cut certain things off, where we need to move differently, where we need to feel and act differently and be more aware of what's going on in a heart-centered space. And guess what? Under the guise of Leo, it comes with some tantrums. That is what happens. It comes with some meltdowns, some ego blows. It comes with some friction from friends and people who are realizing we may not be on the same page, or whether it's social groups, friendships, networking groups that you belong to, social platforms that you belong to. I mean, I've been seeing it across the board. I had a total, I mean, it's been going on and off for like a week and a half for me, but I've got, unfortunately, people on one of my platforms on Instagram are going and copying my Instagram account, copying my photos and everything, and then they're sending direct messages, right? Saturn square Uranus in Taurus. And they're trying to reach out to people to get readings, and they're scamming people for money. And it's like been really agitating. I feel terrible that it's going on because I've done everything I can, reach out to Instagram, try to, you know, start the process of verification, getting emails from clients who are telling me, you know, how financially strapped they've been, but they thought that there was an opportunity to get a message from me, and then they sent people money, and I'm just like, oh no. So that kind of put me in a funk the last couple days, but then I just kind of realized, like, it is what it is. All I can do is basically try to maybe move some of my content to a newer platform. That's how I'm responding to it. It's inspiring me to want to go and do work elsewhere, or putting it more through YouTube, or putting it more through a more secure network. So I'm trying to see the silver lining and realizing that that may not be the best long-term platform for me, right? And those of you guys who follow me, you know that most of the stuff I post is memes anyway, so we'll see. So moving into tomorrow on the 3rd, here we go. We have Venus in Virgo trine Uranus in Taurus. It's electrifying. It is going to be a little active. This can be more positive for changing up your workspace, your health flow, your finances, dietary stuff. It can be that nice kind of shift and a change also in romantic relationships. And it can kind of liven things up, right? So we see like Uranus is like this live wire. And trines are positive, harmonious energy flows. And so when that's happening between earth signs, we see physical changes. There might be a nice little bump financially for some people. There may be an opportunity to make a little bit more. There may be an opportunity to be innovative in how you're changing up your diet, your work routine, or rearranging your office space, or bringing in some new like technology in some sense. So personally, I think this is a pretty good aspect. I do think that it might bring a little bit of excitement and kind of support and help out Venus in Virgo, because that's not the easiest place to have Venus. She's not the most comfortable there. Then also on the 3rd, we have Mercury in Leo moving into a square with Uranus. So this is very different than the Saturn opposition, right? Because the opposition is pulling it in two different directions and saying, well, you know, we could do both, but I'm going to say no. This is similar. The T-square is kind of like being in an intersection. You've got a green light and you've got a green light and you've got a red light, right? So people with the green light, they can go direct, but people with the red light, they have to stop and they actually come to the intersection and they can't move because something else is kind of flowing, if that makes sense. Eventually I'm just gonna get a whiteboard and just start drawing all of this stuff. It'll turn into like a geometry class. But when you have these squares or these intersections, not all three parties can move, right? When you have a grand fixed square where it's going to be 4 different places, which we are going to see at some point next year, all 4 kind of come into like this gridlock and they have to have a conversation with each other, and almost like when a light goes out and you have to stop and let each side go, that's how it's actually going to work next year intermittently. But for right now, this intersection that's happening with Mercury in Leo squaring Uranus and Taurus, it's nervous, it's frustrating, there's sudden changes, sudden unexpected situations that will happen. I think of like Uranus being electricity and being fire. I think of all these, you know, placements going through Leo and creating squares. To be honest with you, I kind of get the interpretation that really the intensity already started yesterday and today. We're already aware of it. So awareness is everything. Sun conjunct Mercury is the awareness of, it needs to be me. So now as it comes into a square with Uranus and Taurus, this is the collective change. Financially, in terms of security, it might have to do with physical things. Like when I see these squares to Uranus, I kind of shudder and I'm like, to me, this seems like earthquake energy. This seems like fire, you know, a fire may break out. I don't like saying that, but these are definitely kind of like the friction points that we see right before there are some major things that happen physically on Earth, because Taurus is the soil, the ground, the rocks, the trees, all of these things. So certain fire areas might be a little bit more prone to seeing something kind of catastrophic happening over the next week or so. But it's important to look at surprises, or expecting surprises, or expecting the unexpected. Like that's the way to go. And it can also be happy surprises, because, you know, Uranus squaring in Taurus ultimately wants us to change our values, shake up the way that we hold on to things. If we're holding on to something too tightly and it's actually happening as a result of something connected to our ego, Leo, then it's gonna, like, you know, get dropped like a hot potato, or it's gonna blow up. This is like a pressure cooker. I have seen quite a few people, as a result of the Mercury square, you know, in May, and also I think back in February, quite a few accidents, quite a few people that have had like broken bones, or they've had like fender benders. So just be mindful that, especially because Mercury does deal with like contracts, agreements, vehicles, mobility, there can be more accidents on the road that day. Do proceed with caution. There can be electrical issues, possibly even electrical fires. That's something else that I'm wondering if it's going to play out. If we're going to hear something on the news about like a plant, you know, having something and some weird electrical fire, or intermittently the last 2 years, I've seen all kinds of stuff on the news about what are those, not the generators, I'm trying to think of what they're called, but basically like the big electrical boxes, like, you know, blowing up and having all kinds of like weird things that are going on and smoking. I remember seeing one that happened in California last year. So there may be more of this stuff happening. So just take your time, proceed with caution, be cautious with electrical stuff, be cautious with fire, especially, please, and do your best to manage stress and not get overwhelmed. Like, when the blow up in your life in one area inevitably happens in this next week, and it doesn't always have to be a physical thing like a fire. It can be, you know, a falling out with a friend, or a conflict or an argument that comes out of nowhere, or somebody who rear ends you on the freeway. I want you to look at it and go, okay, all right, well, I kind of knew that something like this was coming. I'm going to remain calm. And I also realize that this is a result of pent up collective energy. The more that we are aware that these energies are kind of, you know, running around, we're less likely to be reactionary and perpetuate that wave of kind of chaos. And I believe that the whole goal of Saturn in Aquarius, the whole goal of Jupiter in Aquarius, is the setup ultimately for Pluto's move into Aquarius, where we have to change our vibes. Vibes are a real thing. Aquarius is about the future, the vibration of the future, you know, originally ruled by Uranus. So we all affect everything. Everything gets kind of dinged depending on how we respond to it. It's like very like Pocahontas, right? Like everything, everything is alive, but it's true. Then what we're gonna see on the 6th of the month is the Sun in Leo comes into the square with Uranus. So kind of an interesting theme here, right? If we kind of back up a little bit, first I think we had Venus and Mars square Uranus. So it was very much about the relationship or values that changed. And then Mars was like the frustration, the meltdowns. Then we are now having the Sun and Mercury square. So the Sun is like the last thing to square, right? So the Sun is the person, the ego, the heart. And I'm going to keep saying that as long as planets are in Leo, because it is about the heart-centered space, the inner child, right? The inner artist. And it does create drama. That's why we love Leo, is because they're so animated and so theatrical and so connected to what they need. So when the Sun comes into a square on the 6th, more change comes. You know, basically it may not always be things that play out the way that we wanted it to play out. Definitely when we see the Sun square Uranus, that's always a clash, that's always tension, it's pent up frustration, unpredictable situations. I kind of feel like the sweet spot for when this stuff is going to happen is definitely going to be Friday and Saturday. But the good news is before this physical thing happens, gotta love Uranus, gotta love Aquarius, we are already aware because we have been feeling this build up. Like, it's so funny. I was looking at my calendar because I have certain days that I see clients, and I remember kind of just looking at my book being like, I'm really busy. I'm going to give myself Friday off. I'm not going to work. I'm not going to make videos. I'm not going to do reports. I'm not going to write horoscopes. I'm just going to take the day and I'm going to do whatever I want. So this morning I was looking at my calendar and I was like, okay, right on. Like, it's right when the Sun squares Uranus. So it's that day where I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to do something different. My values are changing. I'm valuing the fact that I need to have more playtime, or I need to have time to do something for myself and do something unpredictable. And that's what I'm valuing, is to give myself a little bit of a break. And that's my way of going against the grain. So whatever is meant to happen these days are going to happen. It's not always like this doom or gloom situation. It could be the friend that calls you up and says, call in sick to work, let's play hooky, let's go to Disneyland. You know, so there will be things that will come up that will seem fun, adventurous, like taking risks, things that your inner child really wants to participate in. However, there still is inevitably going to be some clash, because the square does represent the pressure that's building between the two. And this is very temporary. Thankfully, once we get the Sun out of this square and we come into the new moon, well, it's still the setup saying, well, we've got 6 months of this kind of clashing energies, which is true if you look at the skies for the rest of the year. the energy for the most part calms down a little bit until we get to Scorpio season. And at that point in time, then the sun and other planets, I believe Mercury will go through Scorpio, Mars will go through Scorpio this year, Venus, you know, all within a short period of time. They will also square off with Uranus and Saturn once again. But for right now, I feel like this is kind of like the cut loose, kind of having fun, sometimes doing things because we feel like we need to do it from a heart-centered space. So I'm going to give you guys a pass. You can deal with some of the crazier things that are going to happen in November. So that leads me to the 8th of the month, and this is when we have the new moon in Leo. So this is an interesting one, guys, because as I've said before, new moons set the stage for the immediate next 2 to 4 weeks, right? So we're really working with a new moon for 6 months until we get to the full moon, which will complete that in Aquarius season in 2022. But you do see a lot of change happening between the new moon and the full moon. So a lot of things shake out. There's a lot of things shaking out this month before things calm down. So I don't want you guys to be like, woo, it's a new moon, like everything's gonna be fine. Like, part of this new moon just talk about the need to shake things up, not a bit, like a lot, a lot. So when we look at this lunation, you know, a new moon in Leo, we look at the sun because the sun is the star of the new moon. And in this, the sun and the moon come together, creating that really fertile, kind of quiet, dark, safe space where a new seed is being planted. Where is it being planted? In the heart, right? There's this connection of the masculine and the feminine, the awareness and the subconscious, and the need to really embrace that inner drama, that inner creativity. I think about people who are like, I just got to cut loose. I got to have fun. I got to see my friends. I have to paint, dance, play. And this one will be happening at 16 degrees. And it's going to be in the early hours in the morning. It'll be right around 8 a.m. actually on the 8th, at least Pacific time. So that'll be 11 on the East Coast. You want to check your time zones accordingly and adjust. But when you see the sun and the moon coming together, and you see it coming into a square, although it's a separating square with Uranus, it's basically saying, buckle up. Because the immediate next 2 to 4 weeks, a lot of things are going to shake out. There's going to literally be vibrations coming out of nowhere that we're not aware of. There may be some need to really focus on the ego and how the ego is responding to things. It's you as the individual, right? So with the Sun square Uranus, it's saying like, hey, this is 6 months of change. So we're going to shake things up for you the next 2 weeks to make it easier for you to really close a lot of stuff out in the next full moon, which, by the way, is a blue moon. It is a second double dose of Aquarius. It is going to be at 29 degrees. It will be conjunct Jupiter. Here's my recommendation for you guys, okay? Because 2022 and 2023, we will still have Saturn in Aquarius. It'll square the nodes. Things are going to get a little buck wild. So this month is the opportunity to just dump all of your shit. Like if there's something that you're like, I'm done with this, I'm letting this go, I'm completely reorienting, I'm going to make a 180, I'm going to go in a different direction, I'm going to approach a situation from a different angle. A lot of this is about the awareness, right? Like the last 2 days is the awareness of what's not working, what's not vibing. So whatever shakes out is the setup, so that way you can look at things on the new moon and go, this hasn't been working for me, but I'm gonna do something so different, so unusual, unlike me, but knowing that it's coming from a place that is the connection to source, the connection to self, the connection to the heart, and the need to be able to overcome whatever static is going on around us so we can get on the right path. So it's not going to be comfortable for a lot of people, right? Regardless of where this hits in your chart, collectively, everybody is going to respond to this pretty wildly over the next immediate 2 to 4 weeks. My issue with this is that I believe if we don't make these orchestrated changes now, while we have support in this chart, the beginning of next year is going to get more and more and more challenging. Next year, the nodes move into the fixed signs. The North Node moves into Taurus. The South Node moves into Scorpio. And those nodes will square off actually with Saturn intermittently in 2022. So we'll feel a little landlocked. And I keep talking about this because I want people to know, if you guys were following me, earlier this year or even last year, I spoke to you a little bit about like, hey, now's the time to kind of get off the train. I was even doing it before we had COVID. I was talking in the end of 2019, telling people, you guys aren't aware of some of the changes that are coming next year. Now, in a way, it's not so much about what's going on with our career or our home or even our families, because the nodes aren't in Capricorn or Cancer any longer. Now with the North Node getting ready to move into Taurus, it's about what do we value. Ultimately, the North Node will conjunct Uranus, and we will see radical changes in technology, especially tech stocks, finances, cryptocurrency, investments. We'll see radical changes in how we value food, supply, trade, even how we grow our crops, where they come from. And we'll start to kind of realize like, whoa, like we're valuing the wrong things. And at that point in time, some people are going to be behind the curve. So we want to kind of get ahead of this now. And I feel like the next month is probably one of the better months, all year, to basically go, I'm just going to turn everything on its head and I'm going to do something different. Even if it's scary, there's a lot of overriding fear that comes up with this. There's some other things that I like here, even though the Sun and the Moon square Uranus, which is a bit of like a, surprise, or a bit of like a not knowing what you're going to get. We do have some planets that are in Virgo, which are really playing quite nicely with Uranus in Taurus and also Pluto in Capricorn. While it's not an exact trine, it is within 10 degrees with both of those angles. So Venus trine Uranus is shakeups and changes in health, wellness, innovation, finances. These are earth trines, so there's some stability here. We're going to see physical change as a result of what's going on with this new moon. It also trines Pluto, so the ability to really dig deep, go deep, heal, purge, detoxify, cleanse. So there's some support from the cosmos to some extent with whatever ultimately ends up shaking out over the next 2 to 4 weeks. While Venus does make an opposition to Neptune, I think that can be a little more so challenging. Technically, if you want to look at Leo, Virgo is the second house. So there's something that's going on financially for a lot of people, or there's some kind of financial news maybe that's going to be coming out soon, especially once Mercury comes into the opposition with Jupiter. I think we're going to see new rules, new laws, new regulations across the board with travel, with the internet, with certain agreements, especially privacy agreements. I think that's going to get interesting too, because Mercury is creating it in conjunct to Pluto. Somewhere in this chart, I feel like the collective is picking up on something before we're made aware of something. And I talked a little bit about this recently on a podcast that I did, and I'll talk more about it when we get deeper into Virgo season. But these oppositions that are getting ready to form with Neptune are going to be a little hazy and a little confusing. Now, right now, at the time of the new moon, Mars in Virgo does square the nodes. So there is some aspect of frustration, the need to move, the need to act, the need to be courageous, defend, fight. But in Virgo, it's fighting for those who are in need, fighting for health care, fighting for support for those who don't have it. It can also represent some kind of pivotal change that's about to be happening with Virgo type things. The service industry, hair, people who do nails, people who are running hotels. We're going to see something that's going to come up here pretty soon, probably when the Sun or Mercury shows up, that has to deal with how those businesses are going to continue to run. Do we wear masks? Do we not wear masks? Do we have to have new protocol, new health protocols, things like that that are going to come up? So watch for that as well. Like I said, this new moon will be in action pretty much for the immediate next 2 to 4 weeks. But in 6 months' time, when this comes to a completion, and now we're moving into the beginning of 2022, it's like at that point, the nodes have changed, Saturn's getting ready to move forward. We're coming out of what will have had been a Venus retrograde, and also there will be a Mercury retrograde. So there's a lot of action going on around Pluto. where there's almost like this forced need to change. So I'm going to politely ask you, even in spite of some of the craziness and the fear of creating change or moving differently or letting go, work with the universe when it shakes a lot of stuff out for you over the next week or two. You're gonna be glad that you did that. And then finally, on the 9th of the month, Venus does come into an opposition exactly with Neptune in Pisces. Disappointment in love, maybe, some scammy transactions, possibly, definitely. Be mindful of what you're doing with your money. Be mindful of, checking your banking account, especially if you have any planets around 22 degrees of either Virgo or Pisces. There can be some suspicious activity. There can be somebody who's not being completely upfront and honest about something, or even avoidant in love or financial matters. And there's some sense of like, I think of Neptune and like fantasy, right? And like putting somebody on a pedestal. And when Venus shows up, it's like amplified and realizing that, not everything is what it may seem. So there can be some disappointment that's happening shortly after, then the next following day or two, we see the moon go into Virgo. So it is definitely going to bring something up where people kind of snap back and they're like, okay, this doesn't feel right. This isn't safe. And it's the setup for Virgo season when we start to really kind of assess details and figure out and sort and sift, what is and is not real, or what is and is not working, or best for us, or fully functional. So that's going to be more next month. I will talk about that quite a bit, actually. Those of you guys who aren't aware, I also do live readings on Fridays. I alternate, so I do either tarot questions or astrology questions. Last night I went and set up all of my schedules so you can see all of my setups. All of my lives will be every Monday morning this month, and then I've also got lives on Fridays. I also do a podcast with my co-host, Mike the Peace Dealer. And you can check that out at the Midheaven Podcast. We just dropped a new one this morning. It's a really fun, new kind of evergreen. We're talking about, what are we talking about? Hold on. Let me pull this up. Sorry, guys. But check it out because I believe it was something that was requested. Here it is. I should know this. Retrograde planets in the birth chart. A lot of people have asked questions about that. We also did a video recently that was about how to navigate and deal with challenging aspects and what it means, whether it's in transit or what have you. So do check out that. Hi guys, I'm now seeing some of your messages. Okay, sounds like you guys are on the same wavelength as me. It's nice to see all of you. Hi Rita, hi JLo, Jessica, Loriana, thank you guys. Nice to see you. Yeah, it's on retrograde, so check it out, especially if you have quite a few retrogrades in your natal horoscope. A little bit of insight as to what us as astrologers think it means karmically and how to navigate that. So let's talk a little bit about this new moon, how it's going to affect each and every one of the 12 signs. I also want to read you guys the Sabian symbol. I saw somebody comment something like recently about being like, why do you read this degree? So if you look at the chart, it's going to be 16 degrees and so many minutes for the new moon, right? It's very rarely like right on the dot. So with the Sabian symbols, we round up. Unless it's exactly 16 or exactly 23, which it rarely is, we read the next degree. Granted, I read both. Both will apply, but I'm going to read you guys, you know what? I'll read you guys both because I like 16 now that I'm looking at it. So Sabian symbols, screen of prophecy, basically an astrologer linked up with like a intuitive, a clairvoyant, and they gave a little blurb or a prediction for each and every one of the zodiac degrees, making up 360 degrees of the wheel. I like it because I have seen these things play out literally sometimes, like literally in readings in my life with clients. I've seen it play out literally in the news. It'll be like this cryptic little message and then like something actually pops up. So I really like that. Check it out if you want to learn more about prediction methods. So for 16 degrees of Leo, because this is very applicable, sunshine just after the storm, recovery, a bounce back. The accent is on recuperation, restoring, healing, freedom, happiness, and happiness follow limitation and sorrow, right? Guard against letting yourself getting thrown off by disappointment or loss. Don't rain on someone else's parade. Recovery, relief, improvement, healing, right? Which is ultimately what's going to happen. That's ultimately the goal here. When I think about, you know, Aquarius, think about the star card in tarot and how that card comes up after the Tower, and that's about rest, renewal, community coming together, everything flowing together, like everything becoming like neutralized, right? So that's for 16, but I want to read you guys 17 because I think it's super, super applicable for where we're going. Leo, 17 degrees, a non-vested church choir. The keyword is communion, cooperation. The symbol speaks to the value of informal or unregimented group experience, learning, cooperation, and respect for personality. The image of a church choir alludes to a fellowship and a sense of community. The suggestion here is a group functioning in the absence of official rules or regulations. It's an exercise in learning self-discipline and the respect for rights, contributions of others. At its highest, the symbol represents joy, working with others, sharing a common passion. On the negative, it's competitiveness, attempts to curry or favor by telling others what they want to hear. The accent is on volunteerism, group activities. Guard against trying to make yourself look more important by others, by trying to stand out or calling attention to yourself. The attention you get may not be what you had in mind. Fellowship, cooperation, harmony, volunteerism, group experience, right? So it's interesting because we already see these themes with Saturn square Uranus. But with this particular one in Leo, in friction to Saturn and Uranus may be that there are certain limitations that are put with people trying to gather together to help others. People who are wanting to do good by others and wanting to get out there and assist, wanting to create change. I definitely think that this is going to be a lot about finding the balance between both political parties, two different perspectives, two different belief systems, whether we wear masks or we don't wear masks, whether they decide to take a stance that's like, look, you know, we're going to ask everybody to do this, but eventually we're going to get to a point where, you know, we're going to use the honor system. I mean, something like that may happen where they have to find a way to appease everybody. But also it's about moving forward and being able to respect the individual in a group dynamic. It's very fascinating that that's happening in the midst of all these Saturn oppositions and also the squares to Uranus. That's like we still have to acknowledge that in a group of people who may have a solid kind of goal in mind, everybody needs to still be an individual. They need to show their beliefs. They need to be able to act on their beliefs. They need to be able to share. They need to be able to act that stuff out. So it's going to be really interesting to see how some of this stuff plays out as a result of this new moon. Like all new moons, it's an opportunity to set new intentions. If you're somebody who has been dragging your feet or lagging on creating change, cutting something off, stopping a habit, not having enough fun, not being creative, not feeling fulfilled, if you have been feeling challenged in self-expression, anything of that nature, the Leo new moons are all about yourself. It's about you. So it's about what you are changing, what you feel, especially because it's very emotional with the sun and the moon coming together. You know, usually the sun blows everything out of proportion, but not really in this chart. And Mercury is still close by, so it's still carrying the light in a way. Just after the moon will cross Mercury and people will go, I have an idea. I'm writing a book. I'm selling a screenplay. I'm making that phone call. Me, writing, journaling, communicating, sharing. Shortly after, when we have this full moon that's going to happen in Aquarius, the moon will conjunct with Jupiter. So in 2 weeks' time, we have some lucky thing. It's like the universe is going to be like this massive slot machine, and it's just going to give everybody some kind of gold star or coins or sticker or whatever for going against the grain and doing what the heart said is best to do, even if other people don't agree, even if other people don't believe, you believe. I'm really looking forward to that full moon because the first full moon was rather challenging with the aspects to Saturn, and it has certainly shaken out over the last week of really feeling quite limited I'm interested to hear how it's affected some of you guys. So I'm going to try to multitask and see what's kind of going on in the chat. Holly said, you don't understand what degrees are, what they mean. Maybe you can, yeah, we can do an episode on degrees. Basically, a circle is 360 degrees, right? And your natal chart is broken down into 12 slices. Of those 12 slices, there is 0 to 29 degrees. So it ultimately ends up making this 360 degrees. Some would argue that there is a 0 and a 60 degree, and a 30 degree, but I won't go there right now. But just know that, and then if you want to go deeper, each and every one of these signs can be broken down into 3 subgroups, which is going to have about 10 degrees in each subgroup, or 1 to 9, which is represented by a planet. And then it also has like a totally different energy within that. So that's kind of interesting as well. I'm trying to think of what that's called, but it's very widely used also in Vedic. That's why Vedic can be so predictive. If you guys are looking for like really great degree astrology, rest in peace, Nikola Stanovich, one of my teachers. He was amazing. He did a lot of degree astrology, as does, what's his name? Witecki, Christopher Witecki. I'm sure a lot of you guys, I subscribe. I love him. He's one of my favorites. Serious Joy, he's really great, and he has his own step system, and there's many different systems out there, but yeah, the deacons, thank you. Yeah. Hi Catherine, nice to see you. Hi Sam. Have you hosted any astrology courses lately? No, but soon. I'm trying to figure out what's best is to put together a course, or maybe to start doing lectures. Probably to get the show on the road, it'd be smarter just to start doing lectures. So I've been thinking about doing some lectures, and like maybe just like selling tickets to it, so people can just come in live and they can watch it and they can have a copy of it. Depending on what people want to learn about. I definitely want to do a crash course, but man, guys, like teaching astrology is so hard. And it's not hard in the sense of the comprehension. It's just, I am like somebody who is constantly needing to scale back and slow down because my mind goes a million different directions at one time. So working with people who are just learning astrology, and like me learning to like really put the brakes on and go slow and not overwhelm people is challenging for me. I have Mercury on my sun. But yeah, comment below. Let me know if there's specific things that you guys would want courses about. I'm also thinking about doing like a reoccurring study group. And probably the best way to do that would be to take the astrology of the times and maybe do like a monthly astrology group. And that would be like a subscription. You guys can join. You can learn astrology as the astrology is happening. And I can kind of work with that on a monthly basis. Hopefully getting to the point where I can do some mentorship and I can start like really training people, because it would be really nice to be teaching other people my methods, but also to be teaching astrology the right way, ethically, and doing it from a place of not just trying to breed a bunch of people who want to be astrologers, because that's not really my MO. More teaching people how to use astrology for their life to create change. That's really what I want to do. So I'm still kind of going back and forth with that, but I promise you that is coming. I'm coming into a ninth year annual perfection, so I know that a lot of teaching is definitely what's going to be happening. Yeah, if you guys are interested in my subscription also, you can check out my channel. There's subscription links. I think you can check out my channel memberships. If you look below, there's 3 different levels, so you can just get in if you appreciate these lives and you want to be tier 1. That's super awesome. You're going to support my channel. Tier 2 is support, and you're also going to get a shout out from me. So I have that list. People like, I have a running list. Paula, Sam Norton, we've got Catherine Murray, so a couple of them are here. Emma, Susan Wexler. You guys are super awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you. And level 3, you're going to support. You're going to get a shout out. You're also going to get 1 reading from me a month on one of my lives on Fridays. So you can get 1 tarot spread or 1 question about astrology. Pretty sweet deal, because by you being able to help support the channel, you're making it possible for me to get lights, production stuff, cameras, new mics, but also getting to where I can get to a point where I can have more time so I can start making educational videos for you guys. I may even consider creating an option where if somebody wants to get in on a top tier and you're like, hey, can you make this video? I will make those videos, because there are people who have questions about specific aspects and things that I'm sure a lot of other people would want to know about. So if you guys want to see more content from me, those subscriptions help me so much. I really appreciate your guys' support. It's really been quite a ride. Those of you guys who've known me from my Astrology days, I did a lot of work with Lotta back in the day, and that was kind of like my big kind of entrance into the YouTube world. And then was doing just like a lot of broadcasting and streaming and stuff from my kitchen in LA. And then I also did a lot of readings in LA, working with a pretty prominent business there for about 5 or 6 years. And then went off on my own and kind of dipped out for a little bit, went into hermit mode, got a little overwhelmed doing videos for a while because it was just too much too soon. I had a couple things that really went viral, and I guess I just didn't really deal well with the pressure. So I took my Saturn return to really go back and integrate a lot of my lessons from my old astrology teachers, and to kind of go through like a huge rebirth, and really needed to work on myself and realize that in order for me to really go the distance to be able to do this work, I really needed to be super present with my Saturn return. I'm very Saturnian. I've got 4 planets in Capricorn, and it's in the 4th house. So obviously it's very private, but it was a pretty gutting period of time in my life, to be honest with you. But go and look at the videos of what I was doing and how I looked and how I look now. The Saturn return glow up is very real. And I think that as a result of just me doing that work, and also just a lot of really awesome people who have come into my life in the last year who have been really supportive and really helpful, and making this possible for me to show up and do this every week is really why I'm here. So it's not just me. There's friends and other people, and my partner, who's like super awesome and helps me put all of this stuff together. You guys don't see that, but the filming, the editing, the podcast, the moderating, like that's all him. So give a special thanks to those people, and Mike too. Mike's been really helpful. Yeah, if you guys ever want to do that, I always have the super chat on, so I'm super open to donations. I also have all of my information below. Another way that you can support also is by booking a reading. So if you are resonating with my style of reading, my sessions are a combination of tarot, astrology, and what I see clairvoyantly. I'm clairsentient, so I just like download information. Yeah, it can be a really interesting experience to get a reading from me, because you never know what you're going to get. And I specialize definitely in predictive astrology. I have a real emphasis on Western and also evolutionary. And I'm in the process of learning horary, so that's going to get interesting here in the next year or two. I'm going to start doing a lot more horary questions. Nice to see you, Lisa. All right, so let's get into what each of the 12 signs can be expecting as a result of this new moon, which, by the way, I didn't mention because I'm aware of it. It's not something that I get super into like other people, but this new moon is on Lionsgate, 8/8. Oh, the Hangman. Okay. So a lot of like contemplation, thinking about things. I feel like this new moon can have a lot of people going like, is the world mad? Like, what's happening? Like, what's going on right now? Like, as if we haven't had enough of that over the last couple of years, or at least the last year or two. There's definitely more of this that's going to be coming. All right, so let's take a look at how it's going to affect each and every one of the 12 signs. We pull up my notes here. So for Aries, this is going to be your 5th house, okay? And where you're really kind of getting dinged, Aries, is the aspects from Uranus in your 2nd to your 5th. So it can be, possessiveness and relationships, drama. It can also be unexpected expenses for children, spending a little bit more money than usual, going out and having fun, going to theme parks, things like that. So for Aries, I get 2 of Swords. Making decisions. Do I do this? Do I do that? Right? It's like indecisive, going back and forth. I also think about Saturn on the opposite side of that house, and how there can be things that you want to participate in with friends, and you may not have the funds, or friends may not have the funds, and so needing to be innovative in how you're having fun. With all these planets going through your 5th house, you don't need to break the bank to have fun. Amber asks, are we going by rising signs? Listen to your rising and then your sun. The rising sign for my predictions is generally what physically happens. The sun sign is what you need to hear on a personal level for your own happiness. So there can be frustrations financially and having to make difficult decisions, or wanting to go and participate in things and being like, do I have the money to do that? Right? So be decisive, weigh out the options. You might feel like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't with that Two of Swords. Making the best decision that makes sense, especially for when it comes to what the heart wants. I could see it for some Aries being like, I really shouldn't be spending money on this expensive concert ticket, but I'm going to treat myself. Right? For Taurus and Taurus rising, this is happening in your 4th house. I don't mind a new moon in your 4th house, Taurus. I think that's nice. It can be new opportunities for emotional renewal. If you're looking for a new place to live, if you're thinking about moving, renovating your house, if you're thinking about having more quality time with your family, cleaning the house, purging the house. But under the guise of Leo, it's like, are there children coming into the house? Are you spending more time with younger people? Are you creating a space emotionally within your home where there is the ability to play or create? Are you realizing that you don't have enough of that? 8 of Coins. Definitely about creative work from home and getting creative with your home space. This can be something like, okay, I don't have an office, but you know, we've got this extra room and like, let's rearrange things so I can have a vision board so I can get to work. I also see this as like you having the opportunity maybe to start some kind of business from home or working with family on a matter, right? It can be as simple as like, you know, working together to throw a party because it's Leo, it's fun. A lot of work going on there. You have to work hard to be creative, and it's also emotional labor. Trying for a vacation, but it's hurricane season. I mean, perfect. So like in that case, you know, it can be like, well, can't really go on a vacation, but can you go on a staycation? Can you go and do something close to home? Can you throw a luau in your backyard and make some Mai Tais and pretend? Probably not. Probably not. Taurus would say like you want the real deal, right? So for Cancer, this is, for Gemini, this is your 3rd house. So it's a lot of communication. It's a lot of talking. It can be about contracts, short distance travel, cars, vehicles, movement, right? So talking to children, talking to lovers, talking and working through creative ideas. So for that, I get the 10 of Coins. Talking money, right? Talking expansion, talking business, family, long-term goals and plans for family. There was another card that jumped out too, and it was the 6 of Swords. So I think it's about talking about where you're going pertaining to those topics. Remember that Saturn is on the opposite side of this. Okay. And with Saturn being on the opposite side of this, and this is also kind of getting dinged by Uranus, it's about, okay, well, you know, we can't travel to faraway places, so let's do something local. Or it can be about legal documents, legal matters. You can look at moons too. You can do that, Sam. That's fine. For Cancer, this is your 2nd house. Great opportunities for manifesting abundance, security, health, being able to bring in more money, being able to seal a deal financially. Ace of Wands. Taking action, being assertive, being heated in a good way, fired up, right? Ace of Wands, for new creative opportunities, projects. I mean, this is so great for you, Cancer, because I feel like in a way it's the setup for making agreements for what you're valuing or what you're bringing in. that's going to set you up next year. So a lot of this abundance that you're manifesting, that you're starting to negotiate and talk about now, is going to be playing out really probably the spring of next year. You'll see some of this at the end of this year as well, but I feel like it might require you to be a little patient and just lay all the groundwork for setting this up now. But new things, new enterprises, new jobs, new projects, new creativity, this is a lot of movement. So very good for Cancer. And it'll get extra sweet when you see that full moon, Cancer, because the Jupiter opposition. So it might actually really crack wide open and like you get the deal and you find out in about 2 weeks' time. Or the loan, or you pay something off, right? Or somebody gives you a check. For Leo, this is your first house. It's all about you. You are the star. This is your time to shine. You have the opportunity this month to really focus on who you are and what you're becoming. Not what your boss thinks of you or your job expects of you. Not what your partners expect of you. And in spite of all of the being tugged in different directions, it's like really bringing your attention back to yourself personally. What makes you happy, how you shine. Get your hair done, your nails done, buy some new clothes, do something nice, get yourself a nice piece of gold jewelry. Something about this makes me feel like you being in your natural energy, it's gonna turn some people off, but that's not your fucking problem. So we've got Queen of Swords, which is basically like you communicating and kind of being like, look, this is the way that it's gonna be. This is me, take it or leave it. And not from an aggressive standpoint, but from a standpoint that's just like, I know who I am. I don't need to explain myself to anybody. The Queen of Swords can also be you dealing with an air sign, or you having to communicate or share, express ideas, make a statement. Maybe you're starting a campaign, you're launching something. If it's something pertaining to you personally as an individual, like if you're on a public platform, if you run a business, if you're the face of something, it's a really great time after this moon to make a statement, especially because that full moon is going to be a completion in your 7th house. So it's how you're bringing more attention to your public image or to who you partner with. So now is your time to shine. Don't be afraid to speak out. Virgo, this is your 12th house. It's a little bit of a mixed bag. So your 12th house does have you feeling a little unsure or a little hidden under the weather. But the 12th house is a sunny house if it's in Leo, so it can be about your own personal dream world, right? What you're thinking about, what you're dreaming about, what your visions are, what you're doing behind the scenes, right? Really perfecting something. So it's an opportunity for spiritual renewal, rest, recuperation, maybe the ability to kind of be working on something privately that's creative. You've got a lot of planets that are in Virgo right now, so there's a lot of action in your sign. So I feel like this is like getting ready to present something or putting the final finishing touches on something. Oh, 5 of Swords popped up. So I see this as definitely avoiding conflict or trying to feel like maybe, you know, how do I navigate this? I'm kind of in my head a little bit. You know, there's something going on where I don't know how to quite communicate or share how I'm feeling. I'm afraid that if I come out and talk to people how I'm really feeling, there's going to be some kind of conflict. In this card, you see them laying their swords down. So I actually don't see drama coming from you sharing how you're feeling about a situation, but it's more like anxiety of how other people are going to respond to something. I could see that, especially because there's definitely some stuff going on with Saturn in your 6th and planets in your 9th. Maybe there's some frustration at work or some frustration with your schedule, and you're just trying to kind of keep your cool, and you're just like, I don't want to have any beef. Wait until the sun, you know, crosses over your ascendant or comes into Virgo. I think that things are going to cool out a little bit. Just so you know, when you have action like this going in your 12th house, you can feel a little unsettled. There can be some aspect of like, you know, the sun is you. So is it your undoing? Are you overthinking things? Are you worrying about situations or scenarios that are not playing out? Take it easy on yourself. Libra rising. This is your 11th house. Friends, associations, networking, the internet, goals. It's in friction to Uranus in your 8th and also Saturn in your 5th. So This might be a little bit more challenging for you. Although all of the air and fire signs will really benefit from this new moon because it is very harmonious to your personal placements. So there is that sextile to your ascendant Libra or to your sun. So it's like a lot of the action that you take, it's going to bring you more so into harmony with yourself, right? So, you know, the cards that popped out were the 5 of Cups. So feeling kind of bummed out, feeling kind of blue. With these cards, you know, this card specifically, there's 2 cups that are upright. There's 3 that are spilt over. So it's like being bummed out because you had, you know, falling out with a friend, or you weren't invited to something, or you feel you're kind of displaced and like there's not an ability for you to connect with other people. Not losing sight of the fact that other relationships are on the horizon. There are other people who do want to spend time with you. There's better relationships, better partnerships that are there for you. This card jumped out too, the Page of Cups. Being emotional, being open, being hopeful, being sensitive, receptive. It can be somebody who says like, hey, like I'll spend some time with you, let's get together. It can also be that there is like a romantic interest that comes in for you and like the attention really isn't on your friends, right? It's more so about what's going on with your partner or meeting somebody new. Especially with Saturn in your 5th right now. I feel like there's a huge change going on with some of your friendships. Actually in your 11th house. Yeah, usually there's a lot of action in your 11th house like we've had is pretty pleasant and pretty fun. But I actually feel like it's a huge, for many Libras, a huge wake-up call or an awareness of like who is and is not their friend. I'm a Libra rising. I can definitely agree with that. Okay. So for Scorpio, this is your 10th house. It deals with your career and what's happening with your career. The first card that popped up actually was the 7 of Swords. So checking everything over, making sure you're not missing anything, checking all the details, be mindful. There might be some suspicious things going on. There can be some stuff happening that you're either overlooking something or somebody is not being completely truthful or honest with you. You know, having all these planets move into your 10th house is a really great time for your career. It puts you in the spotlight. It's wonderful. However, you do have Uranus in your 7th house and you have planets going through your 4th. So there can be certain things that come out about your personal life in the next month that can make you a little uneasy or sensitive. Really trying hard to protect whatever's going on in your home zone or your family zone and not allowing that to bleed into your public life or your career seems to be really important. The other card that jumped out was the Hangman. So something is being hidden from you. There is something that either you are not wanting to get out or something that you're wanting to keep private. And then the 3 of Wands. It's what direction you're going in. So to me, it's kind of saying like not everything is meant to be out in the open, Scorpio, you know, in a way that could almost do a little bit more damage if people have way too much access to you on your Facebook, your social media, your websites. If people are aware of what you're doing, it somehow can kind of bleed into your public life. And not that it's a bad thing, but like not everybody is meant to have access to that is what I would say. Might be a little bit more difficult for those fixed signs for this new moon. For Sagittarius and Sag rising, this is your 9th house. Okay, the Lovers. Makes sense. Possibly having some kind of a romantic person at a distance, maybe choosing between 2 people, trying to differentiate the difference between being in lust and being in love, falling in love with a place, falling in love with a course, a class, something that you study, you know, returning to something that you love. I could see, especially communication being that. So I think Gemini, and I think phones and texts and emails, and then the 9th house is like, you know, going back and forth with somebody who may be at a distance and trying to really understand or comprehend the bigger picture when it comes to relationships, especially with Saturn in your 3rd. So to me, it seems like it may not be easy for you to break away and go on long distance trips, or for you to go back and forth and see this person, or a lot of planning that's taking to go somewhere, or to perhaps even take a course. Some of you guys might be learning or teaching something in the next 6 months as well. And Gemini says There can be some duality to it, falling in love with the idea of it, or falling in love with the language of it. So even some of you guys who are interested in learning a language, or you're in the process of learning a language so you can travel, that can be something that can be great, especially for later in the year. For Capricorn and Cap rising, this is your 8th house. So this is I call this like the closet, right? Like the 12th house is the attic, the 8th house is the closet. It's what is hidden, sometimes what we don't want to look at, what we don't want to see, but what's deeply transformative and transformational for us. Capricorn, this is a sexy part of your chart, man. It's 8th house Leo. It's like your inner romantic. It's your inner passion. It's what everybody doesn't always see when they first interact with you or encounter you. I could definitely see like this being really wonderful for bringing in like an angel investor, or somebody who comes in and saves the day financially for you. Somebody who comes in and gifts you something or pays something off for you, and you're like, this is amazing. The card that I get for you is the Sun. So Leo, right? And highlighting the 8th house of like you needing more, other people giving you more money, more affection, more security, more sex, more stability, going deeper, and really highlighting the need to do that. And that when you expose that part of yourself and you're willing to be vulnerable, you have so much more to gain. So if you need more, ask for more. Put a real spotlight on this, especially being that, you know, it's making oppositions to Saturn in your 2nd, so feeling a little financially trapped. This is great for getting a loan modification, debt consolidation, a payoff, a credit card, some kind of an investment. So it looks very good for you. Also, the 8th house, I could see pregnancy in the Sun. So that could be another way that we could look at it. But it can also be not necessarily a pregnancy. It can be like the beginning of a new project that you nurture. For Aquarius, this is your 7th house. It's quite active, especially with having Saturn in your 1st and Uranus in your 10th. Partners are going to be a little more active, a little bit more dramatic, demanding. They're going to want more from you. You might find that some of the friction that's been going on in relationships can actually bring you closer to someone. There's something really worth working through, because there's going to be like a pot of gold in 2 weeks during that full moon. Granted, that can be a situation where it pops, but you can find that it's worth working through whatever you've been dealing with, because it's going to be like, oh my God, this is what I've been waiting for. Everything is happening. Now my dreams are coming true. If you're single, it could be a situation where it's like you finally get to that breaking point where you're like, okay, now I'm ready. So the card that comes up for you is the 9 of Swords. And so I see this as like working through the anxiety, working through the fear. If you've been in a rough patch in a relationship or in a business partnership, it's like not losing sleep over it, like allowing yourself to move through it, being present with this. Like relationships aren't always easy. Sometimes they're very messy and they're challenging. And some of the best ones are the ones that really put you on the spot and ask you to grow, right? That's really what's going on. Growth, growing up. And in your 7th house, they may act up a little bit in the process of you having boundaries with yourself, but there's also this ability to grow together or grow apart. So if you're able to communicate and express that anxiety, I feel like you can get a lot further in your relationship. Don't lose sleep over it though. It seems temporary to me. And last but not least, Pisces, this is your 6th house. Great opportunity to set intentions for doing more creative work, really paying attention to your heart, both emotionally or physically, working up a sweat, doing some more cardio, maybe incorporating dance into your fitness, making more time for art and more time for play or romance. Great time to set intentions pertaining to work and health and how you can be of better service to yourself. Strength. Perfect. Such great cards. So two of the signs got cards that are directly related to Leo. So there's going to be a lot of strength here, maybe strength training. Maybe it's moving in the direction of just feeling stronger emotionally, and that's coming from rearranging your schedule differently, or really focusing on creating your schedule in a way where it feels like playtime, where it's not super rigorous. Strength also tells me that there's a lot of like emotional strength that's going to come from physical stuff happening over the next month. So whether this is getting stronger with your diet or just stronger with your physical routine, I feel like you're going to come out the other side of this in about a month's time and be like, I'm feeling pretty good, right? Especially because you got Saturn in your 12th house right now. So you're realizing that moving through emotional stuff does require you to move some of that stuff out of your body. Get moving, get walking, get active, get dancing, yoga, things like that. It'll be really helpful. And art therapy can be really great too for those of you Pisces who are struggling a little bit. Now Saturn and Jupiter are back in your 12th house. So it's almost like you're in your cocoon phase. You're getting ready to release something. Something is getting ready to come out pretty soon. Wow. Well, guys, I hope this was helpful. This is a little bit longer than usual, but that's okay. I am really stoked to be able to give you all this insight on the new moon in Leo. You'll have to let me know how it goes. Remember that this whole week is about change. Embrace the change. Take a deep breath. Remind yourself that you are in an intersection. Some things have to stop and some things have to go. So move with the friction of the universe. I promise you it's going to give you something really great on the other side. You'll start to see sparkles of that in the next full moon. And in 6 months' time, you'll be a completely different person. If you liked this video, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and book a reading with me if you'd like. Check out beyondtheveiledtarot.com or all of my social media handles if you want to stay in touch. I will see all of you guys soon. I'll be back on Friday, and yeah, we're gonna do some live readings. So you guys take care. Enjoy your week.